He once claimed that the stuff was up to 100 times stronger, while the price was only a mere $5 more. Despite having overdosed numerous times, I still continued the next day, because the withdrawals when locking the drug became an unbearable horror. That feeling, if I had to use a metaphor, is like trying to rip a boil out of your flesh with your own bare hands. Painful and nearly impossible. This place. No one needs me, and no one expects anything from me. Ironically, that very state is exactly what I am dependent on. Welcome to Slices of Homeless Life at Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia. In the early days of 2026, the rows of makeshift tents that once crowded here have now vanished. The chaotic sounds of open-air drug markets are gradually being replaced by a different picture. But behind that neatly tidied exterior is a shocking truth. Thousands of people have not disappeared. They have merely been pushed back into the shadows to serve a billion-dollar urban redevelopment plan. The filming crew has threaded through abandoned buildings and forgotten alleys to track down the answer, whether the government is truly cleaning up the city or silently erasing the presence of the most vulnerable people. Part 1 opens with the pristine facade and the strategy of human dispersal as at Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia in early 2026, the images of the outdoor drug mecca, where hundreds of tents overlapped under the MFL subway line, are now only a thing of the past, replaced by sidewalks scrubbed with industrial chemicals, a dense presence of police forces along with digital billboards painting a vision of a new city. However, behind that almost sterile cleanliness, a harsher reality is silently unfolding, as data recorded from the beginning of 2000 and 2006 shows that the density of homeless people in the main Kensington axis has decreased by more than 60% compared to 2024. But the paradox lies in the fact that mobile relief organizations report that the number of overdoses and the need for medical support have not diminished at all, thereby showing a dangerous shift. The crisis hasn't ended, but has only changed its form of existence. When the tent zones are dismantled, those people are not brought into a recovery system, but are driven deeper into dark alleys, cold subway tunnels, ruined structures. And at Kensington, cleanliness does not mean the problem has been solved, but is simply a way to push the issue out of the sight of voters and real estate investors. The government's cleanup policy, in essence, is a dispersal strategy where, through administrative pressure on industrial sanitation teams, hotspots are swept clean every day, forcing the homeless to constantly move, creating a devastating psychological impact of prolonged instability. When a person can't stop anywhere for more than 4 hours, they gradually fall into a state of total exhaustion, losing the ability to access social services, losing fragile community links, and more importantly, becoming invisible to the media and public opinion. Ultimately, the core question remains: when the authorities declare they have cleaned Kensington, where have those thousands of people actually gone? The investigative hypothesis shows that the current cleanliness of Kensington Avenue is only an optical illusion, masking a wave of chaotic movement into neighboring residential areas, increasing social conflict, and turning addicts into ghosts beyond control. Kensington in 2026 can't be seen as a humanitarian achievement, but rather a clear testament to an out of sight, out of mind policy, where the presence of humans is traded IAF to preserve the value of expensive real estate. Part 2 opens with control mechanisms and symbolic violence, where public space is turned into a tool serving power. Part 1 was a visible cleanup. Then this part exposes a silent war of a technical and administrative nature. Kensington 2026. Authorities do not only rely on buttons or eviction orders, but also deploy forms of symbolic violence through subtle adjustments in architecture and policy aimed at stripping away basic human rights to exist. One of the typical examples is the blue light tactic, where at the newly cleaned hotspots, Philadelphia has installed streetlight systems emitting a characteristic blue light. Technically, this measure is explained as an attempt to prevent injecting because the light makes veins difficult to see. But from an investigative perspective, this is a form of indirect torture. The blue light does not diminish addiction, but only forces dependent people to seek out darker spaces such as deep alleys, polluted sewers, or unlit abandoned structures, entailing serious medical consequences as injecting in low-light conditions increases the rate of missed veins, causing abscesses and widespread blood infections. The nature of this measure sends a wordless message. Your death is not a problem, as long as it does not take place under our lights, side by side with that Executive Order 725 issued by Sherelle Parker, declaring a state of emergency for public safety, has created a legal corridor allowing law enforcement to increase the level of intervention. Under the name of ensuring security, the freedom of movement for the homeless is tightened. The point of note lies in the way political language is utilized. The poor and the addicted are labeled as security threats rather than individuals in need of medical support. And when the terminology changes, public empathy is frozen, paving the way for harsh enforcement measures without meeting string resistance. Meanwhile, the Win Philly Plan campaign announced the goal of providing 1,000 treatment and recovery beds. But field investigation shows a stark paradox. The beds exist, yet they lack operators. Philadelphia in 2026 is facing a serious shortage of psychiatrists and addiction specialists due to high work pressure on the allocation of budgets, prioritizing law enforcement over medical care. Besides that, the administrative procedures to access these treatment beds are so complex that people in a state of drug-induced mental disorder can almost never complete, leading to the fact that the figure of 1,000 beds only exists in political promotional billboards, while in the reality of the streets, the overdose death rate continues to rise incessantly. This becomes a clear manifestation of moral contradiction, as a system builds relief structures, but closes the doors to the very people who need to be rescued. Moving to part 3. The question of displacement continues to be raised. When Kensington Avenue was cleaned, where did those thousands of people go? Now the investigation results show they did not disappear but only shifted, like a tumor being compressed, then spreading, forming a complex and risk-prone migration map. Right in the heart of Philadelphia 2026, geographical dispersion began to take place when, after the sweep campaigns, the flow of homeless people moved to neighboring areas like Harrogate, Fahill, and McPherson Square, which were already communities under much economic pressure, now having to shoulder an additional wave of newcomers, leading to increasing social conflicts. This shift, intentionally or unintentionally, has turned a concentrated hotspot into many scattered tension points, making it harder for relief organizations to reach them. While increasing confrontation between poor population groups, native residents have to face the appearance of needles and tents right in front of their living places. Now, the worrying trend is the rapid increase in the squatting of abandoned buildings, as in Philadelphia, rows of degraded red brick houses become shelters for people pushed out of society's view. Existing as ghosts in their own city, side these abandoned structures, with no electricity, no water, and no heating system. The homeless must face death lurking from every direction, the risk of structural collapse, fires originating from makeshift heating devices, and especially death from the cold during code blue alerts. When hiding in those ruins, addicts are completely cut off from the medical system. An overdose case occurs inside a locked abandoned house. The chance of being discovered and saved is nearly zero. Those who can't find shelter in abandoned buildings are forced into a state of continuous movement, turning Philadelphia's subway system on night bus lines to mobile bedrooms, where they board at midnight and travel aimlessly until dawn just to find a warm seat and avoid being chased away by authorities. Another significant portion, although still having jibs, choose to sleep in personal vehicles parked in vacant lots on gas stations, trying to keep a neat appearance to continue work the next morning, while the night becomes a silent struggle for survival behind frost-covered car windows. The entire Kensington cleanup campaign actually operates like an expensive game of whack-a-mole, where instead of solving the root causes, the government pushes thousands of people into more dangerous, harder to reach, and more fatal locations, causing Philadelphia 2000 and 2006 to no longer have a concentrated slum, but instead social fractures spreading everywhere. Moving to the economic aspect, the reality of 2026 in Philadelphia has overturned common prejudices about laziness. Many homeless people still maintain daily jobs. Field observations show that at discrete parking lots around Kensington, hundreds of people wake up early, change into uniforms in the cramped space of old cars, and then step into warehouses, supermarkets, or construction sites like ordinary laborers. However, the question of why people with jobs still have no place to live is answered by a harsh economic calculation. The minimum wage is not enough to cover even the smallest studio apartment in the Kensington area, where rent prices are driven up by a wave of speculation, forcing the majority of low-income workers to spend more than half of their income just to maintain shelter. Only takes one small incident like an unexpected medical bill or a K breakdown for them to immediately fall out of the housing system and slide into the sidewalk. Besides that, the administrative system creates a dead-end loop, as a person can't apply for a stable job with insurance if they lack a permanent address, but they also can't rent a house if they can't prove a stable income, forming an invisible but durable barrier, holding back people who are trying to reintegrate in a state of legal limbo. More ironically, the cost of survival in the streets is actually higher than living in a house, as without a kitchen or refrigerator, they are forced to buy pre-processed food at prices many times higher, while also having to spend extra for laundry services on storage liquor rentals, causing their meager income to continue being eroded. The medical aspect, Kensington 2026 business witnesses where death comes not only from deprivation, but also from the increased toxicity of addictive substance on the decline of trust in the healthcare system. The drug crisis has entered a darker phase as traditional opioids are gradually replaced by xylazine, a sedative used in veterinary medicine, which neutralizes familiar life-saving measures because it is not an opioid. Antidotes like Nocan are no longer effective in reversing overdoses, causing the risk of death to rise high and making the medical system become obsolete before the transformation speed of the crisis. The zombie necrosis phenomenon is becoming a gruesome manifestation of the crisis, as this substance causes wounds that eat deep into the bone, destroying living tissue irreversibly. However, many patients still refuse to seek out hospitals for fear of being arrested right at the emergency room, according to new regulations, causing them to accept a state where they biddies gradually necros in the street rather than face the risk of detention. The question of why thousands of shelter beds remain empty leads to another reality. The support system is operating based in regulations far removed from the actual circumstances of the homeless, creating inhumane barriers. The policy of not accepting pets has become a prime example, because for many homeless people, pets are not just companions, but also the last emotional bond. Forcing them to give that up to be admitted to a shelter becomes a choice too cruel, causing them to return to the sidewalk. Visas that gender segregation policies force couples or partners to separate when entering the camp, while in a dangerous street environment, losing wins. Only protector is a risk they can't accept. Addition. The housing-ready regulation requires addicts to be clean of drugs before being granted a place to stay, a rational condition, considering the reality that no one can successfully detect in a state of daily survival stress in the sidewalk. face the crisis at Kensington in 2006. Sociological and public health experts believe that Philadelphia needs a fundamental change in mindset, shifting from a medal based in law enforcement to an approach of comprehensive intervention with low barriers. The focus of the solution lies in the housing first model, in which housing is seen as a foundation rather than a reward. Reality has proven that trying to detox in a fight-or-flight state in the street leads almost entirely to failure, with extremely high relapse rates. Therefore, the urgent solution is to immediately provide stable housing without requiring prerequisites of employment or sobriety. Because only when a person has a safe space to rest, look the door, and bathe will biological stress levels drop enough for them to begin the process of psychological treatment and recovery. This requires the city to convert abandoned hotels or public structures into long-term supportive housing units with low costs and accompanied by a medical team operating continuously. Side by side with that, the system needs to be adjusted to better fit the reality of homeless life, including allowing them to bring pets as a source of emotional support, allowing couples to stay together to maintain mutual protection, providing safe storage space so they do not have to give up all personal property, the last remaining fragments of their previous lives. The context of substances like xylazine causing severe necrosis. Another important direction is to deploy mobile medical care services, bringing specialized vehicles deep into the alleys and forgotten areas, operating as field hospitals capable of changing bandages, treating infections, providing replacement medications like methadone or buprenorphine in-site. This approach not only helps reach those who are isolated from the medical system, but also step-by-step restores eroded trust, thereby minimizing the risk of mass death due to infection and necrosis. Not only when support is placed before punitive measures will the Kensington area have a real chance to enter a process of revival. Part 7 closes with a conclusion on forecast, as Kensington in 2026 is no longer an image of people staggering under the sunlight, but becomes a harsh test, exposing the true nature of the midden metropolis when, stripping away all layers under the guise of health and security, what appears as a process of forced gentrification. The core of the matter lies in the appropriation of space, as the ultimate goal of the cleanup campaigns is not to heal people, but to liberate land resources. Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia, is viewed as a real estate goldmine held back amidst the wave of development. The removal of tent camps is actually a strategic move aimed at eliminating images considered visual pollution, paving the way for high-end housing, projects, and new investment flows. This cold calculation. The homeless are no longer considered individuals in need of help, but are turned into planning obstacles that need to be removed. From current shifts, two future scenarios are gradually becoming clear. First is the fragmentation of the crisis, where instead of disappearing, the problem will resurface in the form of many mini Kensingtons scattered throughout poor residential areas, making disease control and the deployment of medical services more complex, while increasing social instability in a wide scale. Second is the increase of silent deaths, as addicts are pushed into abandoned buildings on dark alleys to avoid sweep campaigns. They lose all community support networks, causing deaths from overdose or infection to take place in silence, unrecorded and unwitnessed. That context, Philadelphia in 2026 stands before a future-defining choice: to become a glitzy metropolis with sidewalks clean of the poor, to become a humane city brave enough to face and heal its own wounds. 4. The measure of a successful management campaign lies not in the volume of trash cleared away, but in the fate of the human beings who are saved and reborn.